Hello, yet again. I am Mary. Cathar Love 164. Actually, I'm Johnny. In my Cathar life I was Matthias. What's in a name? As Gertrude Stein said, a rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. Doesn't matter what else you call it, it's still a rose. I want to talk a little about not just the book I Am Mary, which I'm promoting because it's such an important book from the point of view of those who are interested in the origins of Christianity, the realities of Christianity, what Christianity's original message was, the essential message was, which has been lost, as has the original messages of most of the great prophets. They've all turned into religions or various things, or gone on various tangents away from the original message. But with the books and the books on Catharism, you've got two groups, or possibly three groups, but anyway, you've got the original eyewitness accounts, which was the two books, the history of the Albigensian Crusade, and that was by Peter of Vaudreuil. That Vaudreuil was an abbey, and he was a Cistercian monk, and he was a monk belonging to that abbey, and he was a witness to a major part of the Albigensian Crusade. The Crusaders, he was actually there. The other account is the song or chanson of the Cathar Wars, and that's by two people. It was William of Tudela, and he was a chronicler. He wrote down, he was there with the crusade. Then after a couple of years, he wrote down what he wrote down what he saw, but he was a good Catholic, and a strong papist, and a fan of Simon de Montfort, who was in charge of the Northern Crusaders, out to annihilate the Cathars. But then he stopped, and then he was taken over by an unknown successor, and who had a little bit more sympathy for the Cathars, and he was definitely a better writer. So those two books are available. They're not cheap, but for anyone who's really interested in knowing and getting the first-hand account by people who, well, certainly one was very anti-Cathar, and the other one had some sympathy for the Cathars, but he couldn't say he was a Cathar either. But both those books are remarkable books. The Massacre of Montségur by Zoe Oldenburg. Now she wrote that it was written in French originally. She was born in Russia, a Russian author, and it's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I play a little part in that book, which was quite amazing at the time. But she wrote it in 1959, and it was reprinted in English in 1970. I need to tell you a quick story. A friend of mine who was in the Korean War with me, he was a sniper. He's dead now, Jim Callahan. I've mentioned him before. And he became a Trappist monk after the Korean War, and he went into solitude, but he couldn't handle the solitude, not talking, as he was a great talker. Anyway, he left that, and they paid for him to become a scientist. But he had a brilliant mind, and he gave religion away pretty much altogether. But he had this very strong Catholic upbringing. And I said to him once, "Why did you go to the Korean War?" He said, "I was a good Catholic." He said, "I wanted to kill communists." I said, "Well, okay, fair enough." And I had a different viewpoint, but I used to talk to him about Catharism and guides and things like that. And I had a guide at that time. There was Breda de Montsegur, who used to talk to me. And anyway, his ears pricked up, and he didn't. He was interested. So one day he said to me, "Look, I saw this book, the Massacre of Montsegur, in my book club." And I said, "Yeah, I've been after it for a number of years. It's out of print." He said, I said, "Get one for me." He said, "No, I'll get it." And he said, "After a bit, you read it." I said, "Okay, fair enough." So about 3 weeks later, something like that, he rings up and he says, this very agitated voice on the phone, John. I said, yeah, what's up, Jim? And he said, "Look," he said, "that book, the Massacre of Montsegur, arrived." And he said, "But it's encased in plastic." And he said, "Just about to open it." He said, and then this voice, he said, as clear as a bell, just like I'm talking to you on the telephone, he said to me, "I suggest you don't open the book. I suggest you get Johnny, me, to open the book for you." Oh, so he said, "I'm ringing you up now." I said, "Okay." I said, "Are you free now?" I said, "I'm free. You free?" "Yeah." So I went out. It was about a half hour's journey to his place, to his unit. And after a cup of tea, we opened up, and he'd settled down a bit by this time, because he's not used to having a strange voice telling him to have somebody else give him an instruction. Anyway, I sliced open the plastic, and he looked at it, and he looked up. The voice also said to him, "Don't you realise you are Guillaume de Mirepoix, a liege of the Mirepoix family?" And it said a number of other words. And so anyway, so when he opened up the book like a good bookworm, he went straight to the index, and he looked up Mirepoix, the Mirepoix family, and then he looked at that page, and there it was, and there was him, Guillaume de Mirepoix, who's in the book, and he was a sentry, and there's I won't go into what it said about him, but anyway, he just said, "The treasure survived, but you were burnt," and he was burnt with me and some others, 240 others at Montsegur. But reading on there was that I was Matthias, and I climbed down this rope and took down the treasure for Montsegur, and it was hidden, and so there was another lot of treasure that was taken down by three other perfecti who were hidden when the place was captured, and then they went down and they took another part of the treasure. So this book is this particular, and he died, and so I've got the book. Now that's a remarkable book, and she did her research, and obviously she researched with the original, the Song of the Crusade, and the original accounts, plus she also investigated the files of the Inquisition, which is open to the public in Toulouse in France. The files of the Inquisition is not open to the public in the Vatican. They like their secrets there. So after that, we have our Arthur Gurdon, who's been mentioned many times before, and his Cathar and Reincarnation, which is an introduction by a lot of people to Cathars, and he wrote about it. But he he was just he was a psychiatrist and a doctor, and he had some patients, and they started talking about it. And the next thing he realised, he was involved, and he was also part of that. He was a perfecti, or learning to be a perfecti at that time, and there's a whole story. It's written in journal form, and then he also wrote "We Are One Another," and which is goes into more detail. And he wrote a number of other books as well on Cathars and past lives. But he went out and lectured, and he really brought the ideas of Catharism certainly into the English-speaking world. After that, we have, where are we? Somewhere? Oh yes, we have the dialogues, and that was, the Cathar dialogues was actually written by my friend Jim, and his guide, Henri de Nabours, who's helped me a lot since then, but he dictated the Cathar dialogues, this book here, and then I wrote it down and organised it in book form, because Jim went off and died, so I had to complete it. And then I also, with that, was the Cathar Codex in the same year. But an interesting thing, because at this Carl Jung, now everyone knows Carl Jung, he was the father of modern psychology. But he had a guide, Philemon. But another guide who contacted him was Basilides of Alexandria, who was a famous Gnostic writer. And he contacted Carl Jung, and he dictated the Book of the Dead, because the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But anyway, I have it somewhere in my library, and it's pretty deep stuff. And but anyway, so that was dictated to him by Carl Jung. Now, Henri de Nabours made the point to Jim Callahan. He said, "Do you think all knowledge comes from books?" Meaning, you can have knowledge that is channeled, which is what happened to Carl Jung. And Carl Jung called Philemon his guide. He called him his guru, his teacher. And so, another way of saying, a lot of the stuff that Carl Jung came up with, because it was tremendously, his thinking was highly original as far as the field of psychology was concerned. And a lot of this stuff, this information, was channeled to him. Now, straight away, for a lot of people, if it's not in the history book, then it can't be true. Okay, that's fair enough. But if you're into Gnosticism, or and certainly into Catharism, then there's the mystic aspect of this, and which means that information is given, is channeled, and information is given and channeled to people all over the world every day of the week. They're going to mystics, they're going to, a lot of people use tarot cards or various things like that to get into it, but there's a lot of fakery out there, there's a lot of humbug, and there's a lot of people raking in money, but there are those who are genuine, and I suggest if you can find a good psychic or a good medium, certainly I like the ones who can actually see the people, they can see them in the room, and they see an image. I prefer that, and it stands you in good stead. So, moving on from that, we have, and which is interesting, and I don't know if either party are aware of it, but there's the book I Am Mary, which is on the cover, by Peter Brown. And what happened was that he was in contact, or being channeled to, by Mary Magdalene, and she said that she wanted to put out this book. And Peter said, when? And she said, now. So they set to, and they wrote out the book. Now, I'll before I talk about that, I'll go to the other one, which is the Cathar message, which is this one here, and it's by Audrey de Groot, but it's two women, and this is her nom de plume. This is not her actual name. She got family. She didn't want, for whatever reason, she didn't want them involved, and she put out the Cathar message. Now, this book is channeled. There's poems by Brandon de Montsevier. There's essays or explanations, if you like, in essay form by Gulabat Castro and others, Brader again, and some others who are not named. So, but it gives you, what that book does is it tells you information about the Cathars of the day, what they used, the herbs they used, how they went about their business, how they washed their clothes every day so they didn't get all the nits that a lot of people did, what the type of clothing they wore, all these things that an everyday Cathar or Cathar perfecti, what they were involved in. And it's just so much information, the food that they ate, if people were wounded, how they treated them or treated various wounds. It goes into a whole range of different aspects of the daily lives, especially of Cathar perfecti, both the men and the women. And some things, and why I like it, it's some of the things are really, how will I put it? Well, she said to one woman who'd had all these children, and this Brader de Montsevier gave this advice to this housewife at that time, and she said, you know, all these children are ruining your health. She said, you know, and your husband just wants children, and of course the church wants a baby every year. The church, and some of them said, one church guy, forget which one it was, he said, if a woman doesn't have a baby every year, she's committing murder. Give me a break. But anyway, Brader said to this woman, look, you know, if you're interested in sex, go someone else, but don't go having another baby with your husband, and you're killing yourself. So they were very, very down to earth as far as things were that concerned. They drank, but they used water with their wine, so they didn't get drunk. They sang and they danced at harvest time. They were in there, they were singing and dancing and having a glass of wine with all the rest of the people at harvest time. He said, as they said in the book, we weren't a miserable lot, we were a happy lot. So that's a remarkable book, giving you what's actually going on at that particular time. Now, harking back to I Am Mary, this is it talks about Mary Magdalene, her husband Joshua, what actually happened, what did happen, an actual account, a personal account, her account of what happened with the crucifixion, how Joshua, her husband, didn't die, but he was lifeless and virtually nearly dead, and he was taken from the cross, but he lingered, and he lasted another 10 years. They all ended up in France eventually. But she not only talks about the message and about universal, unconditional love, undifferentiated love, love without conditions. She puts it in a very simple form, and how she ties that in to modern day quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and how this type of love is the highest form of energy that we can produce. By doing positive things, we're raising our positive energy within our body. Negatively, by doing negative things, sending out negative thoughts, angry thoughts, insulting thoughts, you're diminishing that. So, but she explains it succinctly as far as modern day science is concerned. So it's a remarkable book. both historically and how you can use that information and for yourself to increase to raise your positive frequencies higher, which is better for your health and so forth. So I highly recommend that book and also the Cathar message. The last one, this is going chronologically, from a point of view of being channeled, information being channeled, is the Cathar Chronicles, which was channeled to me over, I can't remember. It was copyrighted in 2019, but the first one, 2014. So these are essays on aspects of Catharism that was channeled to me from 2014 until 2019. Again, this is channeled information. The other group of books, and there's some wonderful books amongst them, and there seem to be 2 or 3 or 4 coming out every year, but they are people who've written about their point of view as to the Albigensian Crusade, the Crusade, or the Cathar religion at the time, and they put it down with all the historical evidence that they could put together and put down their point of view. But that's all based on historical evidence. So there's the three areas, if you like. There's the original 2, the Song of the Crusade, and the other one by Sunay, the monk, Cistercian monk, and then you've got the ones by Arthur Girdham and they were also partially channeled. So he seems to be a what would you call it? A linchpin, because he's putting down what actually happened day by day. He journals it as he was a doctor, and then he's got this information from other people, their experiences and what was channeled to them, and he's put it together. And then you've got these other books which I mentioned, which are channeled information. And then we have our other lot, which is all the various ones you can buy in most bookshops, and they're all based on historical evidence. They're the books at the moment that I'm aware of. You may be aware of some others that I haven't mentioned. I'm sorry about that. But there's 1 or 2 other things that I just want to mention before I bid you adieu. And one is that next month, this is July, next month is August, and in the month of August it is 700 years, it's the anniversary of 700 years since the last Cathar in France, not the last Cathar Perfecti. He was burned in France. That's Guillaume Balabast, and it's when he predicted that after 700 years the laurel will again go green. In other words, the children of light will return. So this is one of the reasons I'm just talking about these books, is because those books I've just mentioned, plus those other, and there's possibly about 30 others at least, books on Catharism, these are already the foundation for modern Catharism, if you want to say, but Catharism for a different age. But they keep saying over and over again, we don't want another religion. There's enough religions around. The one thing the world doesn't need is another religion, and I totally agree. But we do want a way of living, a philosophy of life, and that is Catharism today. It's a philosophy, it's a way of living out your life, it's a philosophical viewpoint that one can follow, and it doesn't matter what particular group you belong to, you can take something from the Cathar message. So that's that particular aspect. The other one is, which comes up, and people always keep referring to the soul. And if we look at the church, the churches are, say, the Catholic version, and it's, you know, where the soul and the body, we're a unit. Well, to the Cathars, you're a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. And that's how they looked at it, because they were all Catholic, so they brought over a lot of Catholic beliefs with them, which they slowly were getting rid of. But the mystic idea, and it's a closer idea of what the soul is. It's not an entity or a unit. The soul is, it's a collection or a gathering together of all your good karma and your bad karma, which you're going to experience in this lifetime and which you carried over from previous lifetimes. So it's a collection of karmic debt and a collection of karmic rewards. Rewards for the good that you did in previous lives, and debt, some things that still need to be paid from your previous lives. So this is a totally different concept, but it's not a different concept from the mystics' point of view. And mystics have had this concept for a long time, and it's something that I certainly subscribe to, and my guide doesn't disagree with that. The other thing that people refer to the soul is, well, the Cathar have, the Cathar side, and often the Gnostics, they refer to the divine spark, and that is where a spark of the divine, as if it's a flame, and a spark jumps out, and that's us. We're a part of the source. We're a speck of the Creator. And this, the Cathar's term, and also when we tend to read about people who are in past lives, they refer to the spark of the divine. Another word for that is life force in the West. To the Chinese, they call it chi. To the Indians, it's called prana. But basically, it's our innermost core, our innermost life force. What I've managed to put together is a couple of videos that I've collected over the years, and there's not many, but there's a few, but where you can actually see the life force, or the divine spark, the prana, the chi, actually leaving, and it is an entity. It is an actual thing, because it's a physical thing. You can see this, and why I'm showing you this is to show you this is something that you can actually see. Now, for others who see this life force going, most people call that the soul. So, well, that's up to yourself. But so I've put down these two particular versions, and they're just to give you a second opinion and just something to think about yourself.
It's also unusual for a soul to be photographed, but perhaps there are conditions where this is possible. Authorities have not released the name of the person who died.
Darling, take some light and go and get your batteries charged, and you can always come back. Oh, the gathering.
August. It's been a while coming around, 700 years in fact, it's taken to come around. But it's arrived, it's arriving. And from that point onwards, and there's not going to be any, not that I'm aware of, any dramatic resurgence of Catharism, but Catharism already has a very strong base. More and more people talking about it. It pops up here and it pops up more and more on the media, on YouTube, etc. So it's already here. It's already becoming quite well established. It's got quite a library that's being gradually put together. So the foundations, there are quite firm foundations that's already been laid. But from what I know, there's going to be some really things that are going to happen that will really start to make people think and realise the value of the Cathar message. And you know, when you condense Catharism, the Cathar message, it's the same as put out by Mary Magdalene, Yeshua. It's universal and unconditional love. They were Essenes, and that was their message. But also, it's the message of Buddha, Muhammad, other Greek philosophers, Socrates, all these people. When you boil it all down, that was the one thing that these people promoted: money, for monarchism. So they had their various messages, but the thing was they were promoting was this love. But it's the one thing that they got lost, and it got turned into a religion, and they put up churches, and they did this, and they got that, and they got their hierarchy, and they've got long robes, and they got riches, and they got all the different things, and all these things tend to get lost. But all these all the great prophets, when it's all boiled down, this was their central message. And they had other things as well they were putting out, but this was their essential message. So, just a reminder, next month is August, and after 700 years, the laurel will again go green. After 700 years, the children of the light will return. Bye for now. Talk again.